Due to the graphic nature of this program, viewer discretion is advised.
Welcome to the Marco Dre Show, everyone. It is Tuesday, September 23rd, 2025. I forgot yesterday to remind everyone it was officially the first day of autumn, hence the inclement weather here in upstate New York that I'm currently living through as a political refugee from California. And I can say I'm not used to this weather. It's not very appealing to me, but thank you, Gavin Newsom, again for all the wonderful work you've done in California. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in to today's show to hear all the relevant, groundbreaking news, both here in the United States and around the world. The only show where the facts are facts and hard truths thrive. Don't forget to hit that like button, follow the show, hit the notification tab, and share with as many people as possible to help get this truth out. Thank you for those that are doing that. And I'm seeing a great number of downloads happening right now, by the way. I'm really happy about that. So thank you to each and every one of you. Let's get ready now for the best hour that radio has to offer. Uncensored and ready to go. Let's get down to brass tacks today. We've got so much to go over in so little time, as always. I'm going to address this quickly. And I have no interest in this at all. But Jimmy Kimmel is apparently back on the air. I found out yesterday after the show ended that Disney's decision was to bring back the show and, of course, resume it on Tuesday evening. So we're seeing that happening. But what's interesting is the LA Crimes have now come out and said that Nexstar and Sinclair television stations are not going to be airing the show. So I don't know what's happening. It's so ridiculous. It really is. They don't want to air the show anymore, but now I guess Disney's going to air it somehow. So who even knows who's going to be having access to the show anymore? It's just a bunch of nonsense, really, in and of itself. The only reason I bring this up, and I say this to you, was because, again, there was the issue of free speech in this. Did Jimmy Kimmel have the right to come out and make a distasteful joke about Charlie Kirk and President Trump just days after he was assassinated? It was distasteful. It was pretty low, I think, as, making a joke about that. But I want to play this to you. I went back and listened to the entire monologue. I sat through the nonsense that it was. It's not funny. That's number one. First of all, it's not funny. If it was funny, that'd be one thing. But this is not a humorous occasion to talk about something like that. A man just lost his life. And it doesn't say anything about that. He tries to allude to the fact that the shooter, of which we have no information about, by the way. I'm not sold that it's this Tyler Robinson character or any of the information they're giving us right now until I see some substantial evidence about this. But he tries to say that it's somebody on the right, first of all. That's how he starts off the joke. That's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. But this is what he had to say. Take a listen. You tell me if this is even remotely funny to each and anyone listening right now.
We hit some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points from it. In between the finger pointing, there was grieving. On Friday, the White House flew the flags at half-staff, which got some criticism. But on a human level, you can see how hard the president is taking this.
My condolences on the loss of your friend Charlie Kirk. May I ask, sir, personally, how are you holding up over the last day and a half, sir?
I think very good. And by the way, right there, you see all the trucks? They've just started construction of the new ballroom for the White House, which is something they've been trying to get, as you know, for about 150 years. And it's going to be a beauty.
Yes. He's at the fourth stage of grief, construction. There's demolition, construction. This is not how an adult grieves the murder of someone he called a friend. This is how a 4-year-old mourns a goldfish, okay? And it didn't just happen once.
When I heard it, I was in the midst of, building a great, for 150 years, they've wanted a ballroom at the White House, right? They don't have a ballroom. They have to use tents on the lawn for President Xi when he comes over. If it rains, it's a wipeout. And so I was with the architects and would design. It's going to be incredible. And they came in, they said, Charlie Kirk is dead. I didn't know what they meant. I said, he was dead. Charlie Kirk was shot. And they thought he was dead because it was so horrific, you know. And I said, dead.
And then we installed the most beautiful chandelier. Sconces you wouldn't believe. There's something wrong with them. There really is. I mean,
the obsession about this guy. They obsess over the whole thing. The whole monologue is political. Saying that it's similar to mourning the death of a goldfish. Never once says anything about how awful this whole tragedy was. Talks about President Trump's decision to build a ballroom in the White House. Why do people think that murder is funny? I mean, I don't understand this. The way that people respond to something like this. Making jokes about it? As if it doesn't matter that a man lost his life while he was on a college campus speaking. So, I mean, I would think this is beneath people to act this way. But we're seeing time and time again that is simply not. There's no low standard for these late night comics. But here's the part that I want you all to hear. I don't think Jimmy Kimmel was canceled because of the joke that he made about Charlie Kirk, which they've been saying is distasteful. But I think he was fired for what he says coming up next. I want you to hear it, and then we'll break it down.
things like that. And why are we building a $200 million ballroom in the White? Is it possible that he's doing it intentionally so we could be bad about that instead of the Epstein list? By the time
the Epstein list. That's a no-no. Bringing up Epstein is not what the late night television cohorts want you to say. So could it have been that? Bring up Epstein again. Putting that back in the psyche of Americans that watch this late night drivel. Jimmy Drivel bringing up Jeffrey Epstein. Is that what it was really about? Showing him, hey, if you keep doing this, you're done. I mean, look how quickly they reverted back to giving him the show. So I don't think it had anything to do with the comments about Charlie Kirk. They say awful things about Donald Trump all the time, and other Republicans as well. So I don't really think it had to do with that. He didn't say anything inflammatory, but it was completely insensitive to say this. That's the way I look at it. I mean, a man just lost his life, and we see that as obviously something that's horrible. Why would you joke about that? But the people at ABC don't give a damn about this. The people at Disney, they don't care. What Bob Iger cares about is that he now reintroduced Epstein after it was swept under the rug. It's not been talked about. Now he's bringing it back up again. And I think that comment had more to do with it than what he had said about Charlie Kirk and President Trump and this thing he calls a monologue. That barely gets any laughs. The other reason I bring this case up, or this story, I should say, is because in the beginning, lots of people were discussing the FCC's involvement in this and what Brendan Carr was doing, and they were making it a First Amendment issue, that the government was coming in and creating this overreach on freedom of speech, which again affects each and every one of us. We should all be interested in this, and the Wall Street Journal is very interested in this. This is what they said yesterday. Some Republicans warn of government overreach on free speech. This is something that's, again, very, very important. The Trump administration's crackdown on political speech following Charlie Kirk's fatal shooting has opened fissures among conservatives, with some prominent lawmakers and commentators raising concerns about stifling free speech. Their message is simply that the federal government is overstepping its constitutional authority at the expense of free speech, and pressure on these media outlets and, of course, other groups could simply backfire. And that's a very important position to take. We on the right, we believe in the Constitution. And I told you this before, I don't have to like what Jimmy Kimmel says. I don't have to like what anybody says. That doesn't mean they don't have a right to say it. Now, it's one thing if they are encouraging violence or speaking about vital threats that involve violence. That's something totally different. What Keith Olbermann said just the other day, that low IQ, that nothing in life, told Scott Jennings of CNN that he's next. And we let people get away with this nonsense. That is inciting actual violence and threatening somebody else's life for having a different opinion than what he has. And I doubt he has very many opinions of his own, Keith Olbermann. All he knows how to do is read a script. But we on the right, we let them get away with this time and time again. They openly threaten violence. Then violence occurs and we don't do anything about it. We talk about it. We don't do anything about it. The time has come to hold these people accountable. And if people are threatening the access of freedom of speech, we should also hold them accountable. So in the days since Charlie Kirk's death, President Trump cheered this decision by ABC's Disney to cancel Jimmy Kimmel's show. I don't like that. I don't like Jimmy Kimmel. No, I don't like Demi Drivel. Come on, why would I like that show? I don't watch it. I don't have to watch it. I've never watched it, and I'll never watch it. But now they've raised the idea of regulating or revoking these licenses of these broadcasters that air this junk. I mean, if they want to air that junk and lose money, what the hell do I care? Lose money. Look at Colbert, another low IQ. I mean, I thought he was employed by the DNC the way he speaks. Jimmy Kimmel's no different. Jimmy Fallon, they're not funny. If they were funny, like a Johnny Carson or even a Jay Leno or a Letterman, that'd be one thing. The whole show revolves around politics. They bring on nothing but liberal guests. That's it. That's just a mouthpiece for left-wing ideology and left-wing narrative. That's all it is. And that's why you're seeing the shows drop off. That's why Greg Gutfeld's show kicks all their other shows' asses. And that is a political show, but we know it's a political show. But it's funny the way that they have the setup, they have the guests, they have actual comedians that are actually funny. And that's why it's the number one rated late night show is Gutfeld on Fox. But this is something totally different now. Now we're talking about the FCC chairman, Brendan Carr. He said in a podcast last Wednesday, right before this decision came in, of course, about the suspension of the show and what Disney wanted to do, and that he actually said that his agency, the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, could punish Disney over the comments that he had made. Now, he doesn't specify what the comments are, but we assumed it was about what he said about Charlie Kirk and President Trump. But he went on to say, and this is the quote in the Wall Street Journal, he said, the way we can do this we can do this the easy way or the hard way, is what he said. These companies can find ways to change conduct, to take action, frankly, on Kimmel, or, there's going to be additional work for the FCC ahead. Now, he's gotten criticism for these comments that he made. We don't know if he actually did anything, but we know those comments were out there. So we don't know if Bob Iger or Disney or the board or the stakeholders heard this and said, we've got to do something about this. We don't want to lose our licensing. There's a lot of money involved in this. And then they made the decision. Now, that was my first reaction was, if the government is coming in and saying he cannot make tasteless jokes that aren't funny, that nobody cares for, we've got to take them out there. I don't like that. I don't even like Jimmy Kimmel. So now we've got Brendan Carr weighing on this. Brent Paul said the same thing. He said this on Meet the Depressed over the weekend. He said, referring to Kimmel, he said people have the right to make despicable comments, but don't have a right to stay employed after making them. He's absolutely right. Ted Cruz made the same thing, likening Carr's decisions to pressure ABC as a mafia move. He said that's right out of Goodfellas, which is a great movie, by the way. Don't think it's not. He said Friday, referring to Carr's comments, that the FCC could intervene in response to Kimmel's comments, the easy way or the hard way. Now, of course, the FCC didn't make a comment on this, but I think, and again, I don't know that, again, these threats were made to Disney. I don't know. This is what we heard. And I find that just as important as what Jimmy Kimmel said. Because we have a Bill of Rights that grants us the freedom of speech, the freedom of expression. Now, unless he's making idle threats of violence, really, he can probably say whatever the hell he wants. Now, Bill O'Reilly, a man who I greatly respect, had this to say about it on News Nation. Take a listen.
This story is bogus. The story is that Disney and Kimmel, for 3 years, would not put on a non-liberal voice on his program. You talk about no freedom of speech and expression. That story has been totally ignored, and it's not just ABC. It was CBS, NBC, MS, and CNN. Okay? They will not put any non-liberal voice on the air, and I know that because I'm in this midst of marketing confronting evil.
Yeah.
And before Trump entered the political arena, I got on those shows routinely because I bring high ratings to the shows, and the books are number ones. But the point is, and this is such an important point, this whole freedom of speech BS is coming from the far left to make Kimmel a victim and to make Trump a villain. When for 10 years, they have banished all traditional conservative thought and discourse on all of their programs, all of them.
And that's the whole point behind it. You don't see conservatives on Jimmy Kimmel. You don't see it on Stephen Colbert. Not that they would want to go on. But they've created this bifurcation between left and right. You're not going to see any difference or variance of opinions on these shows. You're just not. It's just not going to happen. You're not going to hear about it. So when I saw this, though, in the LA Crimes, they came out and they said, we're not putting the show up. That means, this tells me, if Bob Iger went forward and said, we're going to put the show back, let's put it out there, I've made this decision, they're the parent company, and then you have affiliates saying, you know what, we're not going to do this. That tells me it has nothing to do with what the FCC did. Because if it did, then Bob Iger wouldn't obviously reissue the show. So to me, this is not about the First Amendment. This is about probably ratings. If you look at the ratings of the show, it's dipping down. They obviously probably got pushback from people. People who said this is simply not funny in this time. They saw that. Kimmel's losing money, just like Colbert's losing money. So, to me, it's not what the FCC was doing, which I'm relieved about. I think it's about the show's ratings. I think they want him gone. He's been on for, 22 seasons? And the show precipitously has been losing ratings for the past 10 years. And it'll probably continue to do so. Who knows who will even watch it tonight? Who knows? I'm not watching it. I hope you're not watching it either, but you have the right to do it. So if you want to, watch Jimmy drivel. See if you can get a laugh in, if you can. But this is nonsense. You're seeing the late night disappear. It's not funny anymore. Watch Gutfeld. You'll get a laugh doing that. Let's go into this next article. I have to go in and talk about this now. This is a major win for MAHA, Make America Healthy Again. This isn't just the news. It says that Trump to link Tylenol and autism and advise pregnant women to use only for high fevers. So this is big. This is very big yesterday, what we were seeing. And we're talking about President Trump, reportedly on Monday announced a link between Tylenol and autism. So we've heard months ago, this coming from RFK Jr., he was talking about the increase in autism. They wanted to research what was going on, what are the variances in the environment, or what we're eating, or what we're using for medicine, or the vaccinations, all these things. And come to a conclusion as to why we have 1 in 31 Americans 8 years old that have been diagnosed with autism, when it was 1 in 50 in the year 2000. If you go back 20 years, it was 1 in 10,000. So we've got to ask ourselves, what is the reason for this trend? Why is it getting worse and worse and worse? What is happening? We have a right to ask these questions. We have a right to know. What is the factor that is causing this uptick in autism? So President Trump made the link between Tylenol and autism, and again, advised pregnant women to use the drug, only in high fevers. I wouldn't use it at all, to be honest with you. I haven't used Tylenol in probably well over a decade, if I have to be honest with you. Probably more than that. I don't take medicines at all. I take supplements. I don't take any type of medicines. Even when I have a headache, which is rare, I don't do that. I just don't do it. I don't do ibuprofen. I don't do Advil. I don't do this stuff. Bayer. I stay away from all of it. Most of it's junk in and of itself. Now, they're talking, of course, about the generic acetaminophen. That's the scientific name for it, of course, which is what Tylenol is. But two unnamed senior administration officials have told Politico that Trump would also mention leucovorin, a cancer and anemia drug, as a potential therapy for people with autism. Now, I haven't really heard that much more about that aspect of it. I don't know. So we'll see what happens as far as reversing the effects of this, if it can even happen. I don't know how that would happen. I have heard actually cases of young children having it reversed, and I don't think it's cheap, but I've heard of it actually happening, where a child's been having full-blown autism, and they can actually reverse the effects of it. It's not common, but again, I heard a case about it. I heard someone's testimony about what they were doing. I think it was, I can't remember the gentleman's name now off the top of my head. Very compelling, though. But he said on Friday, autism is totally out of control. He's right about that. Telling reporters that he would have a big announcement soon, and he thinks he has the reason why. So White House spokesperson Kush Desai said on Sunday that the announcement will make historic progress. The Center for Disease Creation and Production did I say that wrong? Oh, no. That's right. That's what the CDC is. Reported earlier that 1 in 31 Americans 8 years old have been diagnosed with autism in 2022. 22 years prior was 1 in 150. 20 years before that, it was 1 in 10,000. How do you go from such a small group of people getting it to now 1 in 31 Americans born? There's got to be something, folks. It's not just genetics, which they try to compare it to. There's got to be a reason for this trend to happen. So now Tylenol and the generic acetaminophen are now the most commonly used pain relief and fever reduction drug for pregnant women. So we have to think the child in utero now. And is this having an effect? What is the drug itself linked to this? What's happening right now? So HH Secretary RFK Jr., other prominent health agency leaders are now expected to participate in the announcement, according to one of these senior officials. And we've got to figure this out. What could be the problem with using this drug? What is the problem with it? Why is this causing this? And I did a little bit of research, as most of you know. I always come prepared. And here's what's being said from very prominent people. So let's listen to this. Let's take a listen. And again, it could be in utero. Obviously, the child's developing. But what does Tylenol do? And here it is. Get ready, listen. You can listen to this over and over again. You can share with friends. This is what's happening, ladies and gentlemen. So the child gets a vaccine, right? We give children a vaccine moments after they're born in this country. For some odd reason, they're given a hepatitis B shot, even if the mother is negative for a sexually transmitted disease. We're worried that an infant is going to get a sexually transmitted disease somehow. That's how absurd this vaccine schedule is, by the way, which has increased massively over the years. I don't remember getting very many vaccines when I was growing up, but now it's just an every time thing. 1, 2, 3 different vaccines at one office visit. So you can see how this problem can easily be linked to autism. So the child gets a vaccine, right? You go to one of those wellness checkups that are simply made to give a vaccine. So the child's born. They get a hepatitis B vaccine, one of, I think, 3 or 4. And they get a vitamin K shot, which, again, is ridiculous if you're taking prenatals. So, absurdity in and of itself. Again, the child has no immune system at this point. The child really doesn't have an immune system until they're about 3 years old. That's when they really start developing their own antibodies and everything like that. Now, some people argue and say, well, Gerace, come on. They're giving them the vaccine so they have it in the system, the adjuvants inside the vaccine will, help produce. It won't. It won't produce antibodies. There's no immune system for it to work with. Now, one of the positive things that you could do with an infant, of course, is mother's breast milk. Right? That is something that we know is effective. And it has been effective for millennia. We've known this. There's no sign that shows that if you inject a child with these toxic adjuvants, that something positive is going to happen. So anyways, we get the vaccine, right? It could be when they're an infant, when they're a toddler. All right? So now we have this influx of heavy metals that are loaded in the vaccine, right? Think of thimerosal, which RFK is trying to ban from certain vaccines. Thimerosal is a heavy metal. It's another name for aluminum. So now we have these heavy metal toxicity. It passes the blood-brain barrier, and now it's very focused and concentrated now in the brain. What happens when that aluminum, that heavy metal toxin, hits the brain? A cytokine storm is what happens. So the immune system reacts, right? The immune system reacts, and it causes this brain inflammation, this swelling. Everything is going to the brain to try to stop, again, this influx, this concentration of heavy metals. So now the child comes down with a fever. Now remember, these are babies, these are toddlers. In many cases, they can't speak. So now the mother refers to the doctor what to do, right? She calls the doctor. What do? I don't know what to do. They prescribe Tylenol, right? For the fever. Acetaminophen. So now we have glutathione production that is now drastically decreased. And glutathione is an essential antioxidant that is produced in the liver. We need this. And it impairs the CYP450 enzyme in the liver, stopping this production. So now there's no more detox, which is the whole role of the liver. The liver detoxes, blood flows through it, it's cleaned, right? We have our kidney system as well, helps filter and clean the blood. But now we can't even detox what's happening in the body. So it's crucial to the body's immune system that the liver functions properly. And of course, we produce this glutathione. So now we prevent the production of free radicals in the body, which form as a result of oxidation. I know this is a long process, but stick with me here. So now we have free radicals that run free in the body. The free radicals damage cells and tissue in the body. And by the way, you can also use alpha-lipoic acid to remove free radicals as well. That's something you might want to look into. But now you have the body. It can't get rid of these heavy metals. It can't get rid of these toxins that your body comes into contact with what we eat, the environment, or what have you. So now your body's just this host of all these toxins. And especially all these heavy metals. And again, we know every visit, every so often, every time they go to the hospital for a checkup, they're getting more of these shots. That means more heavy metals, more accumulation in the body. Now, let alone an infant or a toddler or a child's body, there is no safe level for heavy metals in the body. Should be 0. I mean, folks, it's basic high school chemistry. Aluminum, mercury, they don't belong in the human body. And we're seeing these time and time again in these vaccinations. Again, do your own research. You can look up what's in them. So now we got this buildup of these toxins, right? We have the buildup of these metals inside the body, causing more inflammation over time. More inflammation, particularly in the brain. And as a result of this is obviously an immune system response now. So now we have the effects of these glial cells in the body, which protect, they support the neurons, which are the cells in your brain. They die. And then finally, of course, the neurons get destroyed. Remember, heavy metals are a neurotoxin. That's what they are. They're neurotoxins. They destroy nerves. So now we have this, and again, I could just tell you time and time again, the more this happens, the worse the condition gets. And then, of course, we find out the child has autism. So, I know it's a bit of a rundown. I know some people are like, what are all these cells doing? Okay. It's very simple. The heavy metals in the shots cause the body to react. There's lots of swelling. The introduction, again, of Tylenol or children's Tylenol into the body. It helps destroy the liver cells. It stops the detox of the body. So now your body's just polluted with these heavy metals, these toxins that don't belong there. And they accumulate in the brain. The more accumulation in the brain, as a response to this, causes more of these neurons in the brain, or these non-neural cells like the glial cells, to die, and of course the neurons as well. And what is autism? It is a neurological disorder, folks. So we've got a big problem on our hands as a result of this. So I wanted to share it. I know it's a difficult topic for anyone listening to it. It's horrible that this is happening. But I wanted to share this with you because I want you to know this information. And I think it's good that the Trump administration is trying to crack down on this. We should be cracking down on this. We should be looking at the safety and efficacy of these shots, of which kids are taking, and adults too, by the way. Now, it brings me no pleasure to tell you that any senior citizen that gets an annual flu shot, the increases of dementia increase by 50% every time. Yeah, that's the truth, folks. And I know because I've been looking up this information for the better part of the last 10 years. So I know what I'm talking about. And again, I'm not trying to sit on a high horse here or anything, but I've done the research. And I implore each and every one of you to have an open mind and do the research as well. So I think they're on the right track here. They need to do more research, again, with these vaccinations. And again, they really need to look at this shot schedule. They need to look at what's inside the vaccines. And again, it's not necessary that a perfectly healthy baby is given 2 vaccines moments after birth. That is completely anti-science in and of itself. Now, Trump's talked about spacing out the schedule, which, of course, they get the shots. We need to look at if these shots even do anything, or if any of them are even necessary. Most of these vaccines which kids are given today are for diseases that are gone. And even if they do catch these diseases, whooping cough or any of the others, they're not life-threatening. None of them are life-threatening. So the whole point of a vaccine was to prevent a disease that has a high transmission rate and has a high mortality rate, right? So if you get this disease, you will die. That's what it was. That's the whole purpose of a vaccine. But we want to stop that, or another ailing condition that results in this. You're telling me measles is causing death in who? Now, many of you will argue, well, it's because of the vaccines now. See, Gerace, the vaccines, they came in. We have less polio. We have less smallpox. We have, measles, mumps. Measles and mumps is not a life-threatening condition. Measles is just like the flu, for God's sakes. So we need to reevaluate what we're doing, what we're putting into our children. We should also be looking at what we're putting in the food supply as well. Think of the pesticides that come into in contact with many of these foods as well. That's something we need to look at. We need to look at what's in our air. We need to look at what's in our drinking water. And we really need a whole revamp of what we're doing. Because it's clearly not working if our kids are this sick. And our kids are sicker today than ever before. So I was happy to to hear they were at least discussing this. I saw Dr. Sherry Tenpenny, who I admire very much. She actually did a research on Tylenol several years ago, and she warned about all this. Yep, she says here on, I believe this is X, she said, so Tylenol, we wrote about this years ago in the Tenpenny report, warning that the acetaminophen depletes glutathione, disrupts detox, and magnifies vaccine injury risk. She's absolutely right. And she's been great about what's happening with this COVID vaccine, by the way. Which brings me to the next article in Slay. It says that 5,000 Americans killed by COVID vaccine every week is what the insurance data is showing us. This is insane. This is insane what's coming off Operation Warp the Seed. One of the world's leading data analysts has now sounded the alarm, revealing that the insurance industry is now tracking up to 5,000 deaths every single week as related to the COVID mRNA vaccination. And I put vaccine in quotes here, as the article does. Now, Edward Dowd, who was a former Wall Street executive, has now reported this data. He's a data expert, by the way. And he's really shared some great information about this. And the idea now that even the insurance companies are relating this is insane. That's not being reported to the public. And yet we still see people going out and getting a COVID shot. In the middle of summer, by the way. Things that don't make sense. That, absolutely. Especially a shot that has been verified that has no effect on transmission and has no effect on curbing any type of symptoms. Remember right away when it came out, we have a Fauci. Well, you know, we have a 95% success rate. When you get the shot, you won't get COVID. Then it was 90. Then it was 50. Then it was 40. Then it was, well, it stops the certain symptoms that you get. Well, hey, that ain't a vaccine, folks. I hate to share that with you, but that's not a vaccine. Well, yeah, I've had family members get the shot. I told them not to. Get the shot, then their doctor tells them that they're going to get COVID soon. And I, who have never taken the shot, never taken COVID seriously, and I'm not telling anyone not to take something seriously. I'm talking about my own self. I have to take my health seriously, and I do things that boost my immune system. But I did the exact opposite with it. I didn't get the vaccines. I didn't overly test. I only had a test because I was working in a school system at the time. Never wore a mask unless I absolutely had to get into a store, which was against my will, by the way. I never wanted to wear one. And I never caught COVID, though. I never caught it. Still to this day, I haven't caught it. Now, some of you might say, well, you're lucky. Thank God. I know so-and-so that had it. Well, there's other reasons, too, for the deaths, of course, which they spiked up. And, of course, the instances of the contagion happening as well. I mean, you had people that were completely fine saying they're tested positive for COVID. Doesn't make any sense. Absolutely doesn't make any sense. So now we've got injuries are 10 to 15 times higher than before. Now, this is according to Dowd. He says that it's not only death spiking, but also devastating injuries. Imagine that, 15 times higher than pre-2021 levels. Dowd said that the hardest hitting demographic is people in their 30s, 40s, and 50s. In these age groups that previously had low mortality risk, but are now appearing in excess deaths in this data across the insurance industry. 30 to 50-year-olds are dropping dead, is what he went on to say. Equally disturbing is that victims of families and the injured are now being silenced, not by law, but by fear. He says that the victims fear this backlash or can't accept that they were simply misled. Right? We never want to admit we're wrong. I mean, I will admit I'm wrong sometimes. That's my job, to correct myself. And I believe in being honest with each and every one that's listening. That's why I tell you what's going on. But Dowd agrees that, or he argues rather, that the scale of the crisis is now being hidden in plain sight. The media, the tech giants are actively suppressing these stories. They're not telling you the amount of dead from this age group is as a result of this COVID shot. Yet they're still telling you to go out and get a COVID shot right now. It's absolutely asinine, if you ask me. So this suppression campaign has allowed officials and, of course, the pharmaceutical companies to continue pushing this narrative of safe and effective. You saw when RFK Jr., as I played for you last week, was being questioned by the schmucks in Congress, several of them. And I forget who it was. Was it Senator Warner of Virginia, that clown? You don't know how many people died of COVID. And RFK Jr. rightfully said, we have no idea because the data is not effective because it wasn't followed properly. Doctors only had to put down if they thought COVID was the cause of death. You had someone maybe die from cancer. They're saying, well, it was COVID. You had someone get in a car accident. I think it might have been COVID. He might have had COVID while he was driving. All of a sudden, took control of the wheel and bam, there you go. Anything was COVID. Why? Because they got more money. It all comes down to money, folks. That's what you're seeing here. And that's the same reason why they push the childhood vaccines. They know if they push enough people to get these vaccines, Blue Cross and Blue Shield will compensate them with a nice 6-figure salary at the end of the year. Nice little bonus for them. That's why they won't even see people that refuse to take these shots more times than less. They simply won't see it because they're going to be losing money if they see these patients. So there you go. There's science and, of course, the well-being of your child at the behest of the doctors. Ridiculousness, folks. Ridiculousness. With up to 5,000 deaths a week now being tied to just this one shot, why is this does not have bigger outcry? And where's RFK Jr. on this? They should be pulling this off the market right now. It's not safe. It's not effective. And it's only leading to your body being a host for these COVID antigens that are now being created with this mRNA technology inside the shot. There was no safety testing that was effective. They did like 2 months worth of it. All the animals in the studies died. And we're supposed to be sitting here saying this is safe and effective? Who says? There was no proper safety testing. Everything was rushed. And the idea that they say Operation Warp the Seed was effective or was, this remarkable thing is ridiculous. The reason why it takes so long for a vaccine, I'll just say this to you, is because they need to go through this proper safety testing. What are the short-term effects of this? What are the long-term effects? We have no idea what the long-term effects of this are, folks. We have no idea. It was only ushered out to us 4 years ago. We have no idea what the long-term effects 10 years down the line are from taking this. But we're seeing it right now. Have you heard about this anywhere? 5,000 deaths a week alone in the U.S. as a result of this COVID shot. I don't know what more to say about this, folks. I told you before, if you haven't been harmed by this, if you've taken it, do not take it again. Come fall, come the winter time, even though you're going to be pushed to take both this and the flu shot. You shouldn't be taking either of them. Get your vitamin C levels up. Get your vitamin D3 levels up. And understand there are ways to detox from this, by the way, to get this out of your system. For the longest time, I was taking something called Masterpiece. You can look that up. It's very effective. I would look into that if you were someone that's taking the shot. It totally detoxes this out of your body. Absolutely. You know what else I've heard that's really interesting? Dr. Brian Artist made this remarkable statement, too, by the way. These are real truth tellers, by the way. Edward Dowd, Dr. Brian Artist. He actually stated that nicotine patches will actually detox this out of your body and keep this out of your body. It's amazing to me. But this is what's been said. This is what people I know use as a precaution. Even people that haven't taken these shots. Again, I never took the shot. I take the Masterpiece because I know how these vaccines, they can shed, they can get into your system somehow. We don't know if animals like beef or chicken or what have you have been injected with this garbage. Anything I've taken, or at least anything I buy from the stores, has no vaccines in them. But you don't know. You go out with a friend, you go out for lunch, you have a burger. You don't know what's in there. You have no idea. And that's how it can get into your system that way. You have no idea. And this is what's so scary about this whole vaccine campaign, what we're seeing right now. So according to an alarming warning from Dowd as well, insurance companies and their data shows that the excess deaths are now soaring on people 18 to 64 years old. This is the whole purpose of this, folks. Absolutely for this. Absolutely. And again, it brings me no great pleasure to do so, but I wanted to share this with you. And again, it is important that we know this. We've got to share this information. Again, if you haven't taken the shots, do not take them. I'm not trying to give you any medical advice, but I'm just telling you, you need to do your own research. And if you don't do your own research, you're, I guess, subjected to this. And I don't want to see that for anybody listening to this show. Let's listen to Dowd, though. I want to. He's such a brilliant guy, this guy, and he's going out on a limb here. He's telling you the truth. I mean, the way they try to suppress. We just saw this from Google, by the way, saying that YouTube was suppressing information during COVID. They were pressured by the Biden administration. Where's that? Where are the 400 schmucks from Hollywood that wanted the Kimmel show back on the air because they're so worried about free speech? They didn't say a damn thing when President Trump was taken off of X. They didn't say a damn thing about Google and YouTube being pressured to change up the algorithms, suppress free speech, and, of course, prevent information being spread to people. Take it right off because they don't want you to hear this. This is why I was so mad about the whole TikTok decision. Look at what a mess that's going to be. Yep, that's all the way. They got to control the algorithms, folks. That's what it comes down to. Here's Here's Edward Dowd. Listen to this.
At the end of 2022, or 2021 going into 2022, Scott Davison, the CEO of One America, highlighted something that the whole industry saw. He was the first to say it. They were experiencing 40% excess mortality in their group life policies, which are policies given to those employees who join up to Fortune 500, medium-sized, mid-sized companies. Mm-hmm. And it's a benefit you get when you sign on to the company, and it's 1 or 2 times your salary. It's not underwritten. What that means is you don't go to a doctor, they just give it to you. Because they have very good statistics on people with these types of jobs, the rate at which you die. It's very profitable for them. And he experienced 40%, and the industry experienced 40% excess mortality in that age group, 25 through 44. Yes.
Which is profound.
Profound,
right?
2021. Yeah. He said 10% would be once in a 200-year flood, which is a 3 standard deviation event. Mm-hmm. So again, rare, just 3 standard deviation event. 40%, he said, is off the charts. He didn't.
Oh my God. 40% increase. Completely unprecedented. Off the charts. Meanwhile, the people that are sharing this information, trying to warn the public about the dangers of this vaccine, are coming under fire all the time. Yep, we've seen the pharmaceutical industry whistleblower that has spoken out to allege that a world-renowned professor, Dr. Francis Boyle, was murdered shortly before he was due to testify before a Dutch court on what the effects of the COVID mRNA vaccines, quote-unquote, are said to do. So they want to silence people. They don't want you to hear this. They want you to hear this information. They want you to stop talking about this. By the way, this Dr. Boyle, he was a bioweapons expert, and he actually wrote the 1989 Biological Weapons Anti-Terrorism Attact, which was passed by Congress and signed into U.S. law in 1990 by President George H.W. Bush. This is what we're dealing with. This is exactly what we're dealing with right now. Dr. Boyle asserted that these were Frankenshots and were part of a plan to conduct medical experimentation on humanity just shortly before his death. He warned that the COVID-19 was developed in a lab as part of an offensive biological weapon, and that's exactly what it was intended to do. And we're seeing it happen right in front of our eyes. Simply no one is reporting on it, though. Unbelievable. Share this, folks. It's on Slay News. Go look it up. Look at it. Educate yourself. Stay away from these shots. Tell your loved ones as best you can. Stay away from these shots. This is terrible. Terrible what we're seeing right now. Yeah, bioweapon. That's what it is. It is a bioweapon. And it's doing exactly what it's intended to do. I've read you the statistics. Myocarditis, pericarditis, infertility, strokes, heart attacks, blood clots, seizures, various neurological disorders that are associated with the shot, and of course, death. Up to 5,000 Americans per week that have taken this shot. Whew. It's tough times ahead of us, folks. Tough times. Tough times. All right. Let's move on, please. Let's go over this. This is in Fox News. Gavin Newsom faces pushback after banning ICE agents from wearing masks. What a genius this guy is. He has no idea what the hell he's talking about half the time. I love it. The state is going to hell in a handbasket. And this is what he focuses on. So California Governor Gavin Newsom's attempt to now block authorities from wearing masks, right? These are ICE agents. And they want them to prevent them from wearing masks during immigration enforcement operations. And now he's facing legal scrutiny. His critics now push back on the governor's efforts to assert power over these federal officers, which he has absolutely no jurisdiction of. They are federal agents for a reason. Gavin Newsom does not control the federal government. He controls the state government. Now, Newsom, a Democrat, and a very stupid one, by the way, as shrewd as he may be, signed a bill over the weekend that bans state and federal law enforcement of wearing masks on the job. A move that President Trump's administration officials decried as illegal and vowed it to ignore it, of course. Bill Assaley, who is a U.S. attorney in California, has stated that he's going to let ICE agents know, of course, that they don't have to follow this law. They don't need to do this. There's no repercussions if they stop themselves from wearing masks. But there's Gavin Newsom. I want you to hear the moron himself. Old new scum. Old Governor Hair Gel. Right? The great Gavin. The Gavinator. By the way, even Arnold Schwarzenegger's coming out against Gavin Newsom about this gerrymandering. He determines he's going to terminate it, which I find very funny. Take a listen.
Unmarked cars, people in masks, people quite literally disappearing, no due process, no rights in a democracy where we have rights. Immigrants have rights. And we have the right to stand up and push back. And that's what we're doing here today. This is a disgrace.
Okay, so he's saying it's a disgrace. He's all of a sudden worried about citizens' rights. Meanwhile, he has no issue taking them. This is the same guy that says California is a sanctuary state, that he's not going to follow federal immigration law, which is a violation of his oath of office. And by the way, every single schmuck standing behind him right now in this video, they don't follow immigration laws, and they simply don't want the federal government to do so either. How a state can declare that it is a safe haven for illegal aliens who have no right to be in this country is beyond me. Now, I shared for you last week Judge Andrew Napolitano's opinion piece in the Washington Times, which is a great piece, by the way. I don't agree with just going up to businesses and just simply harassing and accosting people and saying, show me your papers. I don't agree with that. But if they are executing a search warrant for someone they know is illegal, that has committed a crime, I don't understand how anyone could be against this. Yes, we do have an illegal alien problem in this country. I don't think ICE agents should be on the street simply stopping people and asking them to identify themselves. Now, they have documentation. Someone is here illegally, and I'm sure they have ways in which they can do this. They should have the proper warrant to serve that person and detain them and allow them the due process. But here's the other problem, though, that I have. These people have really no rights if they're here illegally, or if they're here on a visa that's expired. They cease to having those rights to them because they're no longer citizens. So it's a very odd situation because the point of this obviously is to detain illegal aliens and remove them from America. They don't belong to our jurisdiction. That's the problem. So how do you go about executing this plan to remove illegal aliens from the country? That's what you need to be asking yourself. How do you do that? How do you do that and still maintain the rule of law? Do illegal aliens have the rights granted under the Bill of Rights? Do they even have that? That's a question we have to ask. Because as an American citizen, I have the right to walk by a cop who says, show me who you are. I don't have the right to show. I don't have the right to do that. We have rights, but do illegal aliens have rights? And how many people on the street can simply say, yep, here's my birth certificate? I mean, I guess a passport could be an identifier. If you can walk around with your passport in your pocket, how many people do that? Zero. Driver's license doesn't mean anything to these days because the great Gavin Newsom, when he was lieutenant governor, and Kamala Harris was attorney general, and the wonderful moonbeam Jerry Brown was in office in 2014, issued over 1 million driver's license to illegal aliens. So that's not even an indicator that you can say that, hey, you're a citizen. So how do we do this? I'm sure we could be innovative, folks. We can use our ingenuity to create a program, in which case we're not simply just jumping out of a car and asking someone to get in and quote unquote disappearing them. Yeah, I don't know. I don't like that aspect of it, but I understand the need and necessity to remove the 30 plus million illegal aliens in our country. By the way, Tom Homan was on last night with Laura Ingraham, and he was questioned, of course, about the numbers, of course, what's happening. Now, according to Homan, 1.6 million illegal aliens have self-deported. That means they've just left on their own, which I guess I find remarkable. He went on to say, though, that some 400,000 deportations have been conducted and served since Border Patrol and ICE have come into effect under the Trump administration. We know that border crossings are at an all-time low, which is very good. But we have a problem here. We have a problem. While we're detaining more people, while more people are being deported, we have to understand something. In 1954, President Eisenhower conducted an executive order, a program. It was called Operation Wetback. And they rounded up just over 1 million illegal aliens in the United States, most of them from the country of Mexico. Now, they did this over the course of, I think, 3 months, if I'm not mistaken. 3, possibly 4. They rounded up over 1 million illegal aliens and deported them. This is in 1954. Think of the resources they had in 1954 as compared to 2025. And in the last 8 months, we've only gotten 400,000 people detained and deported. Something seems a little bit off there. They should be deporting, I'd say, with today's tactics, and of course with the budget, and of course the numbers of which people that are applying to work with ICE and Homeland Security, they should be able to get those numbers, I'd say, within a month, at least. At least. They have the resources to do that. So we're well behind on these deportations. And I said to you before, and I don't say this with any joy, we can't be a nation of citizens and non-citizens, and allowing one group of people to have every right under the sun that have no right to them at all. Again, that doesn't mean you have the right to jump out of a car, I don't think. I simply say, show me your papers. I'm not very fond of that at all. And I think that violates anyone else's rights. I mean, the government doesn't have a right to jump out of a car and tell you to identify yourself. And they do have a right to issue warrants to these people. They do. So we need to get to work on this. They need to come up with a plan. They can figure out who these people are, folks. Don't think they can't. They absolutely can figure out who these people are that are here illegally, serve them papers, allow due process, and then, if necessary, they can deport these people simply afterwards. That's what should be done. So, folks, I hope you enjoyed the show today. Hope you learned a lot. I hope you'll share it with many people. I know we went over some very important topics today regarding vaccines and, of course, autism and, of course, the COVID-19 shot and deaths in America. Not a fun topic, but I wanted to share it with each and every one of you. Hope you enjoy the show, folks. Make sure you're keeping your home in order. Make sure you are storing up food, ammo, any supplements, medicines you need. Anything you need to be self-sufficient. Make sure you're doing that. It all starts at the home, folks. And I will see you again tomorrow, as always, on the next Marco Dre Show. Until then, be good. Stay busy. God bless each and every one of you. Have a great rest of your day.